Talking Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast, recorded in the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @QinReview. That is @CUENDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@QinReview.com. That is INFORMATION@QuenReview.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 7th of September 2023. From the news section. Appeal over rejected plans to turn land into Glasgow car park latest. An article by Drew Sanderlands and read by me, Corey. An appeal over rejected plans to turn Pollokshields land used as a COVID-19 testing centre into a car park have been dismissed. Council planners had turned down a bid on behalf of the Gurdwara on Albert Drive to use a vacant site for over 100 car parking spaces. The applicant appealed the decision, arguing additional parking is needed in the area, but councillors on the city's local review committee upheld the initial ruling. Planning permission for 90 flats on Barland Street / Albert Drive land over the road from Tramway and the Gurdwara were granted in 2019, but the scheme hasn't progressed due to the pandemic. The site is still expected to be used for housing in the long term. Proposals submitted to the council revealed the applicant intended to provide 101 parking spaces and 12 electric vehicle charging spaces, as well as 60 storage containers. It also included 20 spaces for bikes. However, planning officials said the application was contrary to council policies, including one that stated it will not support proposals for permanent or temporary public parking out with the city centre that is intended to serve commuting demand, except where this would be considered with an approved transport strategy for park and ride. They added no transport assessment had been provided with the application, which was needed to assess and justify the impact of such development at this location. 4 objections to the plans were received by the council, including from Councillor John Molyneux, Greens. They raised concerns over traffic congestion, road safety, increasing carbon emissions, and the noise and light impact on residents. But the applicant's appeal argued a traffic survey had been carried out for the previous proposal to build flats and is still relevant today. It added the proposed parking is more for local demand rather than commuters, including businesses that require evening parking. They said the lighting would only be used to 10:30 p.m. at the very latest, and the site would support visitors to Tramway and the Scottish Ballet, as well as shops on Victoria Road and Pollokshaws Road, schools, restaurants and community facilities. Quote, "It should be stressed that this is a temporary situation, and it would be of great assistance if the council can agree to the proposal for this area of ground to be put to a more fitting use," the applicant said. The application had stated, the clients had purchased the site with a view to developing the approved planning permission for the flatted accommodation. This was working through their system of approvals just before the pandemic struck, which raised doubts on the immediate viability of the flattened accommodation, making it less realistic in the short term. The appeal added the former application for flatted accommodation was shelved due to the COVID pandemic, as the client required their funds to assist the local Gurdwara community with regards to health, food and housing requirements. The client is putting forward this temporary project proposal until they are in a position to proceed with the original submission for flatted accommodation. At the committee meeting on Tuesday, the chairman, Councillor Kenny McLean, said, "There have been clear policy failures. There has been nothing that I have seen in terms of mitigation that would prevent us maintaining the previous decision to refuse." Councillor Paul Leinster added, "I don't think there is anything that we have heard, and I don't think there is anything that could have been asked for that would change the fact that it is clearly against policy in a number of areas." However, Bailey James Scanlon said, "I think this is a good application. Anybody that has visited the area will know how busy it is with traffic. It is an absolute nightmare trying to get a parking space." That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was written by Drew Sanderlands and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 7th of September 2023. From the news section. CCTV showed Rangers fan repeatedly throwing items at police. An article written by Connor Gordon and read by me, Corey. A Rangers supporter repeatedly threw items at police during a fan title party. Ewan McAlpine, 23, chucked the missiles at Glasgow City Centre's George Square on May 15, 2021. Thousands of jubilant Gers fans gathered to celebrate the club's winning the Scottish Premiership. Glasgow Sheriff Court heard that McAlpine was snared following a police operation. Prosecutor Jessica McGowan said, "Pictures of McAlpine were submitted to police and CCTV inquiries identified him. He threw unknown items repeatedly at police." CCTV was shown to the court where McAlpine, in a Blue Rangers top, was seen to throw unseen items on a number of occasions before going out of view. He was invited to attend a police station on July 12, 2021, which he did. McAlpine of Dumbarton, West Dumbartonshire, pleaded guilty to culpable and reckless conduct. Miss McGowan requested a football banning order to be imposed upon McAlpine. She said, "The Crown say that you should be satisfied this was a football-related offence. Although not at a game, it is clearly related." Sentence and consideration of a football ban was deferred until next month, pending background reports. McAlpine was granted bail in the meantime. That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was written by Connor Gordon and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 7th of September 2023. From the news section. Still game stars invite Glasgow fire crew to show after rescue mission. An article written by Ben Waddle and read by me, Corey. A group of firefighters have been invited to a show by two still game stars following a rescue mission. It comes after emergency crews raced to the city's Kings Park on Monday, September 4th, to rescue two small dogs who had become trapped after entering a large hole. On arrival, the fire crew from Castlemilk's Red Watch instantly recognised the Pooch's owner as Jane McCarry and Mark Cox, Isa and Tam from the sitcom. After successfully rescuing the star's animals, the crew were invited by the pair to the still game-inspired People Have to Know show at the King's Theatre this weekend. Watch Commander Ricky Borland, who was in charge of the mission, said, "The hole the dogs had become trapped down was very deep and was located behind a large felled tree. The fear was that the hole would collapse and trap the dogs inside. We had to be very careful with how we worked, but were thankfully able to free the dogs safely. Jane and Mark were delighted and were very thankful. We're all big fans of the show, so recognised them right away. It was a successful rescue and a really positive outcome all round. The invite to the show was just the icing on the cake." That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was written by Ben Waddle and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 7th of September 2023. From the news section. Support staff at Glasgow universities to strike over pay. An article by Alan Jones and read by me, Corey. Support staff at 20 universities in England and Scotland, including cleaners and librarians, are to strike in the coming weeks in a dispute over pay. Unison said that there will be coordinated action for at least 2 days by more than 5,000 staff at the start of the new term. The walkout is separate to strikes at the end of the month by lecturers and other staff at 140 universities in a separate row over pay and conditions. Unison said the action follows demand for a fair wage rise after years of below-inflation increases. Unison members in 16 universities in England will walk out on October 2nd and 3rd, while a series of strikes will take place in Scotland later this month at 4 institutes in Glasgow and Dundee. Staff voted to reject a pay offer for 2023-2024 worth between 5% and 8%, and have voted to take industrial action. Unison's head of education, Mike Short, said, "Support staff play a crucial role helping students through university, but they've endured years of real terms pay cuts. Many can't support themselves as prices of food, fuel and household bills continue to rise. Some are having to leave for better paid jobs elsewhere, and that risks leaving millions of students facing a worsening university experience. Universities must improve wages." Members of the University and College Union will strike for 5 days from September 25th in their long-running dispute over pay and conditions. That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was written by Alan Jones and it was read by me, Corey.
Evening Times, September 7. Opinion. George Redmond says, Glasgow's wake-up call from Birmingham. I have been saying since I came back into the council last year that it wasn't going to be long before we saw a council going bust in this country. Sometimes I really don't like being right. The awful news this week that effectively Birmingham City Council went bankrupt is another stark warning that local authorities need to reassess our financial stability. The challenges faced by Birmingham are certainly sobering. A deficit that has run into hundreds of millions of pounds, cuts to essential services, and a community struggling to reconcile with its local government's financial imprudence. Remind you of anywhere? The reality is that Glasgow is also on the edge of a fiscal cliff. The ever-increasing demands on housing, public transport, healthcare, and social services are stretching our coffers to an alarming degree. I speak repeatedly about the awful statistic that sees our city's children being the most impoverished in Scotland, and our drug death rate the highest in Europe. What does that all come down to in the end? Money. And let's be blunt here, the persistent issue of funding gaps has made our situation ever more precarious. So, what is the reality of Humza Yousaf and the SNP government doing anything to address this? Despite ongoing discussions and negotiations over funding for local governments, the commitments have fallen far short of the actual financial realities faced by our city. For far too long, the relationship between Holyrood and local councils, particularly Glasgow, has been one of strained expectations. Gaslighting and raising expectations time and time again, only to let the country's biggest city down. It is time that the First Minister actually addressed this. The current financial agreements and expectations set upon local governments like Glasgow are not just unsustainable, but they are also unrealistic. Given the financial tightrope that we are walking, any reduction in funding or failure to increase it in line with actual needs will only push us further into further fiscal uncertainty, much like what Birmingham is going through. But let's not make this merely a question of pounds and pence. This is about the future of Glasgow, about the well-being of our citizens, and about maintaining the trust that people have in their local governments. As it stands, Glasgow has been expected to perform a myriad of miracles with financial constraints that make such endeavours not just challenging, but also risky. The time has come to reset the relationship with Holyrood. We need an open dialogue, free from political manoeuvring, and full of practical problem solving. We need financial commitments that are not just theoretical numbers on a spreadsheet, but actual investments into our city's infrastructure, public services, and people. Failure to address these issues is not just a political misstep, it is a betrayal of the people who put their trust in their elected leaders to govern wisely. It's a betrayal of the promise of a better, more sustainable future that every citizen looks forward to. It's a betrayal of our children. We hope that Birmingham's dire straits serve as a wake-up call for us to act now, before Glasgow becomes another sad headline in the history of local government failures. As we draw lessons from Birmingham's predicament, let's not be bystanders in our own story. We urge Humza to take immediate steps to rectify this situation. The fabric of Glasgow society and the stability of its future hangs in the balance. The bell tolls for us, and it is high time we answered it, says George Redmond, Labour Party councillor in the Carlton ward. Evening Times, September 7. Lifestyle. Taggart stars emotional tribute to Glasgow show as it turns 40. Report by Anne Fotheringham. Emotion rarely tripped up no-nonsense cop Jackie Reid on hit TV show Taggart. However, as Blythe Duff, the actor who played her for more than 20 years, officially opened a People's Archive dedicated to the famous Glasgow series, she was fighting to hold back the tears. "I am an emotional wreck," she admitted, just before the launch of Taggart, the People's Archive, in Glasgow Caledonian University yesterday. "I am already feeling quite overwhelmed. Everyone has a Taggart story, and some have a real need to share those stories and memories because of what they mean to them and to their loved ones. There have been so many lovely, precious stories, and that's what this is all about." Taggart, the People's Archive, opened to the public on the 40th anniversary of the iconic detective show's pilot episode, Killer, created by Glenn Chandler and produced by STV. Cutting the police tape to declare the archive open was 19-year-old Faye McCluskey, whose home in Balmaha was used for a location shoot for the 2005 episode, A Taste of Money. The university is encouraging members of the public, whether they were extras, involved in location shoots, or even play their corpse, to come forward with their own memories of one of the world's longest-running police dramas. a team of retired detectives is hosting drop-in sessions in a mock police station on campus over the next few days to take witness statements to add to the archive. Blythe, who has donated boxes of her own memorabilia, including scripts and costumes, has fond memories of her scary first day on set for the 1990 episode Death Comes Swiftly. She said, "It was my first TV job, my first time on a set, with a huge crew and all the lights, and it was quite scary. But James McPherson, who played DCI Michael Jardine, walked and talked me through it all." Taggart helped put Glasgow on the map, Blythe explains. "From the social history side of things, we caught the city at a point when it looked beautiful," she added. "The Garden Festival had just happened. Cafe culture was growing. It felt European. It looked amazing. And the city became the extra cast member. Asked if she'd love to revive her role and do it all again. Blythe replied without hesitation, "I've done it. I loved it. But I've done it," she says firmly. "There was a time when Jackie could jump out of a police car, run round the side and hit a mark, jump back in and start the car, all with her handbag neatly in place on her shoulder the whole time." But she adds with a laugh, "Now, when the photographers are asking me to crouch down for the picture, all I'm thinking is, that's fine, but how do I get back up?" Drop-in sessions will be held at GCU's Sir Alex Ferguson Library until 4 p.m. on September 6, between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. on September 7, and between 10:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. on September 8. If you cannot make it along, you can submit your evidence online. For more information, email archives, archives, at gcu.ac.uk. Report by Anne Fotheringham.
From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 9th of September, from the news section. COVID Booster Scotland 2023, Everything You Need to Know. Article by Andrew Smart. Plans are now underway to offer people across Scotland their boosters for COVID-19 as the country enters autumn and winter. The plans were brought forward after advice from the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, JCVI, earlier this year. This comes amid concerns over new variants of coronavirus, such as the recently discovered Parola strain. According to Public Health Scotland, this most recent booster campaign is to have an increased focus on protecting those at highest risk of becoming seriously ill. When are the COVID-19 and flu booster jabs being given in Scotland? Public Health Scotland states that the first appointments for both flu and COVID-19 vaccinations will begin for the elderly, 65 to 74, and most at risk, aged 12 to 64, on September 18th. Other groups eligible for the booster will then receive these as the campaign progresses. The GCVI recommend that the following receive their COVID-19 jab this year: residents and staff in care homes for older adults, aged 65 and over, aged 6 months and over with a condition that places them at higher risk, pregnant, carers aged 16 and over, aged 12 and over who are household contacts of people with a weakened immune system, frontline health and social care workers. These groups are all eligible for both a COVID-19 and flu vaccination this autumn and winter, and will be sent invites by the NHS. How to book your COVID-19 booster in Scotland. Those eligible will receive a letter or digital prompt inviting them to a vaccination appointment. However, those who have not yet received a COVID-19 vaccination aged 12 and over can register for an appointment on the NHS website. Those doing this must be registered with a GP to use this service. Those not registered with a GP can do so by calling 0800 030 8013. That's 0800 030 8013. Find out more on the Public Health Scotland website. And that article was by Andrew Smart. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 8th of September, from the news section, Glasgow Apollo founder Frank Lynch dies at 84. Report by Gabriel Mackay. Frank Lynch, who founded the Glasgow Apollo and managed Billy Connolly, has passed away aged 84. The businessman was known for managing a number of legendary Glasgow nightclubs, as well as the iconic music venue which played host to some of the world's biggest stars. Former Pavilion manager Ian Gordon worked for Frank Lynch in the 1970s. He said, "Frank was a trailblazer. In all honesty, I don't know if the Glasgow club scene would have developed so successfully without someone like Frank Lynch at the helm. He was a great innovator. Not only did he run Apollo Leisure, which featured the Apollo Concert Hall and Clouds Disco, he opened up a whole range of nightclubs such as Ultratech, the Savoy Disco, and incredible new bars such as Muscular Arms. Frank was always full of exciting ideas to bring in the punters. For example, in the Muscular Arms, he had giant cartoons of the Bruins in Our Wally, with one, for example, featuring Desperate Dan's Cow Pie, with Our Wally having a P into it. D.C. Thompson threatened to sue, but Frank just laughed, reports the Herald. Frank Lynch was always the man to spot opportunity, and he made the Glasgow club scene into what it became: thriving, buzzing, and lots of fun, very much like the man himself. Lynch opened the Muscular Arms on Nelson Mandela Place in 1971. Known as Glasgow's first pub for trendies, it's believed to have been the first establishment in the city where a bouncer would give you a swift knockback if you weren't cool enough to enter, with queues stretching hundreds of yards down the street. Pop art themed, it replaced old Langs and featured a Superman suspended from the ceiling, a literal dummy behind the bar, and a classic car which appeared to be crashing through the wall. Lynch was Billy Connolly's first manager, and it was he who convinced Michael Parkinson to book the comic to appear in his chat show in 1975. The big game proved to be an immediate hit, with Frank saying in 2003, "Billy was making £25 a gig when I first signed him. When I left, he was earning thousands. I must have done something right." He was credited with revolutionising Glasgow's nightlife with his company, Unicorn Leisure, in the mid-1970s, not least by opening the Apollo in 1973. On September the 5th of that year, Johnny Cash inaugurated the venue, which would go on to host the likes of David Bowie, Bob Marley and the Wailers, and The Clash. The Apollo would close in 1985, but remains a legendary venue. Lynch told the Daily Record in 2012, "I've promoted gigs at the London Palladium and Carnegie Hall in New York, both hugely important venues. The Apollo is right up there with them. If you could make it there, you could make it anywhere." It became the benchmark for venues around the world. The audience reaction was off the scale. Other parts of Lynch nightclub empire include Maestro's, Silks, White Elephant, and the Savoy, which is still in operation to this day. He also managed the band Slick, which helped launch the career of Majure. He sold Unicorn for £1 million in 1979 and moved to the Isle of Palms, South Carolina, from where he operated a chain of upmarket car washes across Atlanta, Georgia and Charleston. In 1984, he took out a 20-year lease on the former stable and garage in the West 55th and 56th Streets in New York to build a nightclub which features an indoor diving pool and ice rink. Mr. Gordon said, "He had done all he could in the city, and he knew it was time to move on. And I believe he was very successful in America, with a car wash business and setting up nightclubs in New York." He continued to be active in business in later life, taking over a non-league English side in 2012 and renaming them from Guildford Park to Celtic Nation. The aim was to reach the Football League and attract fans from across the Celtic nations, but investment was pulled in 2014 and the team folded a year later. Head of the Northern League Mike Arnos told the BBC at the time, "What happened with Frank Lish was a one-off. He's built a good ground here, but the fair weather fans have gone and a small number of faithfuls remain. I guess that is what happens when the money goes. The dream a few people had is gone, but the fact the team isn't just leaving the Northern League but folding altogether is the most sad thing of all." Mr. Gordon said, "Frank always was an adventurer and a really good guy." By Gabriel Mackay. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 8th of September, from the news section. Glasgow's council to remove potentially dangerous concrete from school. By local democracy reporter Drew Sandilands. Glasgow's council is planning the proactive removal of a potentially dangerous type of concrete from a city secondary school. Councils were asked to check whether the reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, RAC, had been used in the construction of schools by the Scottish Government in July. Last week, over 100 schools and colleges in England were closed following the discovery of RAC, with a beam in one school collapsing. Glasgow City Council confirmed RAC was identified at Whitehill Secondary in 2021 and that checks are ongoing in other buildings. At a full council meeting, Bailey Patricia Ferguson, Labour, asked Councillor Christina Cannon, the SNP City's education convener, for an update on the surveying of schools. She asked for a commitment to complete any required repairs as quickly as possible. In a written response, Councillor Cannon said the council has advised our PPP, public-private partnership, partner that we would like to set up a team and discuss and agree a strategy for proactive removal and replacement of the RAC panels. It is intended to cause minimal disruption to the operation, learning and teaching in the school. The council have already made communication with staff at the school and parents to make them aware of this, Councillor Cannon added. The council has said significant steps were put in place to monitor the condition of RAC at Whitehill Secondary, which shares a campus with Golf Hill Primary, and detailed inspections have shown no evidence of defects that could affect the integrity of the material. Council officials are working with the Scottish Government to review buildings and following guidelines issued by the Institute of Structural Engineers. There is a 4-stage process to identify RAC in Glasgow, beginning with a desktop survey. At Stage 2, schools that can't be eliminated from the search under Stage 1 are tabulated and efforts to locate original design information will be made. Stage 3 involves a visual inspection of any buildings that can't be eliminated from the process, while Stage 4 may require to have more intrusive testing undertaken. A council spokesman previously said the process had eliminated the vast majority of establishments across the city. And that report was by Drew Sandilands. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 8th of September, from the news section. OAP brutally assaulted as shoppers packed Glasgow's Buchanan Street. By Facebook reporter Morgan Carmichael. An OAP was seriously assaulted in broad daylight as shoppers packed the city's Style Mall. The attack, which involved a 67-year-old man, took place on Buchanan Street at the junction with Argyll Street on Sunday, September the 3rd. The man was taken to the Glasgow Royal Infirmary as a result of the incident, which occurred at around 4:55 p.m. Following the assault on the city's Style Mall, which is usually brimming with shoppers and families, cops are now hoping to catch the suspect in question. The suspect has been described as around 5'11" and of a heavy build. He was wearing a green t-shirt at the time of the attack. Detective Constable Matthew McCann of City Centre Police Station said, "This is a busy area, and as our inquiries continue, we would appeal to anyone who witnessed a serious assault take place, or anyone with personal footage to contact us. Anyone with information should contact 101, quoting reference 1356 of September the 7th. Alternatively, Crime Stoppers can be contacted anonymously on 0800 555 111. and that report was by Morgan Carmichael. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 9th of September, news. Woman left badly shaken after attempted robbery in Glasgow, by Nicole Mitchell. A woman has been left badly shaken after an attempted robbery in Denniston. A man in his early 20s approached a 26-year-old woman on Armadale Street, near to Golf Hill Drive, at around 8:30 p.m. yesterday, Friday, and stole her bag. Members of the public came to the woman's aid and managed to retrieve her bag and items. The suspect then ran off in the direction of Duke Street. The woman did not require medical treatment, but police say she has been left badly shaken by the incident. Officers are now appealing for anyone who was in the area at the time to get in touch, while relevant CCTV footage from the surrounding areas is also being checked and door-to-door inquiries are being carried out. Detective Sergeant Laura Roberts said, "I am appealing to anyone who was in the area around the time of the incident to get in touch. In particular, I would ask the members of the public who helped the woman to call us. Also, if anyone has recording equipment, such as doorbell or dashcams, please check the footage as it could hold images relevant to our ongoing investigation." The suspect is described as being white and in his early 20s, with a slim build and spoke with a local accent. He is said to be around 5 foot 6 inches tall, with short dark hair, and was wearing a blue-coloured baggy tracksuit. Anyone with information is asked to call Police Scotland via 101, quoting incident number 4577 of September the 8th, 2023. Alternatively, you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111. And that report was by Nicole Mitchell.
Glasgow Times News on Monday, the 11th of September. Better enforcement on vehicle idling needed. An article written by Drew Sandilands. Calls for stronger enforcement on vehicle idling, particularly outside schools and health centres, are being made by Glasgow councillors. Councillor Angus Miller, the city's convener for climate and transport, said soft-touch government regulations are limiting the council's ability to effect the behavioural change we all want to see. Current fines for idling offences are just £20, he said, and enforcement officers must initially have a gentle chat with motorists. Vehicle engine idling represents a serious threat to air quality and to public health in our city, the SNP councillor added. He was responding to a question by Councillor Lana Reid McConnell, Greens, who wants to see the Scottish Government strengthen guidance on idling, especially outside schools, care homes and healthcare centres. She also called for more to be done to raise awareness of the damaging health implications. The severity of idling can be quite extreme and concentrated in some areas, Councillor Reid McConnell said. Councillor Miller said he had written to former Transport Minister Kevin Stewart, SNP, to set out his views on how idling enforcement can be strengthened to better support local authorities. He expressed his concern that present enforcement tools are not sufficient. Existing Scottish Government guidance, going back decades, suggests the issuing of fixed penalty notices for vehicle idling offences should be a last resort, Councillor Miller said, with a soft-touch approach mandating engagement and a request to stop. Officers can take action only if motorists refuse or are soon after caught reoffending. I think we all agree that an element of awareness raising and education is absolutely necessary and desirable, and that we need to make sure that people are aware of the dangers of idling and their responsibilities under the law, the Transport convener added. But it's certainly clear to me that the current soft-touch approach to idling enforcement mandated by the national government regulations is limiting our ability to effect the behavioural change that we all want to see. In his letter, he requested a review of the guidance, an expansion of who can issue idling fixed penalty notices to include parking attendants, and an increase in fines, as the current £20 level was set in 2003 and has not kept pace with inflation. He said the former minister told him that the Scottish Government had no plans to change the regulations, but he has continued to pursue the issue with the new Transport Minister, Fiona Hislop. Councillor Miller said he had secured a discussion on the issue at a meeting of the Convention of Scottish Local Authorities Environment and Economy Board. He'll seek to work with other local authorities, supporting calls for strengthening enforcement action. An article written by Drew Sandilands. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 11th of September. North Lanarkshire Council writes off almost £180,000 in debt. An article written by Neil McGrory. North Lanarkshire Council has written off almost £180,000 in debt it's owed for health and social services as unrecoverable. The money owed to services such as home care, nursing and residential homes, community alarms and charges to other institutions has been deemed uncollectible. The main reasons for this are that the debtor is deceased with insufficient funds to pay the sum due. Small amounts are owed which are not economic to pursue. The debtor has moved away and cannot be located, or all available means of recovery have been exhausted. There were 38 cases of the debt being written off due to death owing, while the largest category of debt was where recovery had been exhausted, a total of £122,000. A total of 62 cases involved sums of less than £500, with 27 exceeding this value. The Council's adult health and social care services sent out invoices totalling £64 million during the financial year 2022-2023, with £63 million of this being charged to other local authorities, health boards and universities. An article written by Neil McGrory. Glasgow Times on Monday the 11th of September. Opinion. Council must unite to boost the city economy. The Tory View, a column written by John Daly. It's been almost 18 months since I was fortunate enough to be chosen by the residents of Baillieston to represent them as their councillor in the city chambers. During that time, I've had the opportunity to help and hopefully make better the lives and conditions of my constituents, often even in small ways, and that's justified the decision I made to enter politics even at this later stage in my life. However, as elected representatives, we have to be realistic and truthful in our interactions with constituents. Perhaps my own career experience has informed that aspect of my political persona. I found it essential to be honest with voters about what is achievable, whether it's down to matters of finance, time, or any other factor. One consistent line of complaint from individuals and businesses alike has been how ineffectively managed our city and its economy has been for some time. Like many Glaswegians, I too walk the streets of our town centre to see the dirty streets, boarded-up shops, strewn litter, and how tired and unloved the centre of Scotland's biggest city now looks. I imagine other visitors who provide valuable investment also see the same. Since the May 2022 council election, however, I look at it through an elected member's eyes and feel a real sense of responsibility. The Conservative group at the council meets regularly with representatives of all sectors of the community, many of whom perceive the City Council to be, at best, complacent in its response to the post-COVID and cost-of-living pressures they face, or at worst, guilty of making decisions that work against the good of our city economy. In the main, most voters have been equally realistic as I have been and understand how difficult it is for only 2 Tory councillors to effect change in a city council dominated by SNP and Greens' marriage of convenience, as well as a second division, and that's a compliment, Labour opposition, who spend more time fighting each other than those running or ruining the show. That doesn't mean that we can't and don't punch above our weight to let the voices of those who generate the wealth that helps pay for council services have a forum in which to be heard. Whether it be the self-employed, taxi drivers, small business owners, or representative of the Glasgow Chamber of Commerce and nighttime trade, the Glasgow Conservative Group meets and represents the voices of hard-pressed businesses, embattled by an SNP administration in thrall to an anti-growth and anti-business Green Party. Last Thursday, at full council, the Conservative group brought forward a motion which attempted to unite the council to recognise the value of investment to our city and to streamline the often cumbersome, lengthy and, to be frank, downright obstructive processes within council and its committees. Unfortunately, this motion fell victim to the usual cabal of SNP Green tinkerers who, in their slavish adherence to ideology over the practical support of our city, amended it out of recognition, turning a pro-city motion into the usual Green call for radical climate action, without spelling out what that would mean for Glaswegians. This last year alone, I've had to listen to lengthy debates about gentrifying or decarbonising our city. I don't doubt the worthiness of most of these aspirations, but they will be cries in the wilderness unless the council focuses on showing that Glasgow is open for business and open to businesses. Voters of all persuasions are deeply concerned about how, emerging from the recent crises, our city looks worn and unloved. Unfortunately, the SNP administration in Glasgow, as in Holyrood, would rather wag its tail to the Greens' anti-business dog than unite the council to do what we're all there to do. Let Glasgow flourish. A column written by John Daly. Glasgow Times News on Monday, the 11th of September. Police Scotland bill given to Transmit organisers revealed. An exclusive article written by Andrew Learmonth. Police Scotland has presented DF Concerts with a bill for more than £150,000 for policing the Transmit Music Festival. The force was kept busy over the July weekend, with an evaluation released to us through Freedom of Information showing they recorded 164 incidents in and around the festival site. Our sister title The Herald reports. In total, 27 people were arrested during the annual Glasgow event, which saw revellers enjoying the music of Pulp, Sam Fender and Mimi Webb. For the first time, details of those arrests can be made public. Offences included breach of the peace, resisting arrest, being drunk in charge of a child, possession with intent to supply, breach of bail, racially aggravated, threatening and abusive behaviour, and sexual assault. There were also 11 recorded police warnings handed out to festival goers. It's understood that of the 27 arrests, just 13 were within the licensed festival site, with 7 on the Saturday and 5 on the Sunday. The others took place outside and festival organisers say cannot be wholly connected to the event. The numbers are relatively small, given that there were 50,000 music fans enjoying Transmit. Though, by way of comparison, Glastonbury, which attracts 200,000 revellers, had just 36 arrests at this year's event. Police say DF Concerts were billed for £50,933.50 per day for policing the festival. The cost of policing last year's Glastonbury Festival was set at £1,349,000, with the organisers paying £786,600 of the cost. Though crucially, Glastonbury is almost entirely self-contained, with most festival goers camping. Transmit takes place in the heart of Glasgow and offers no camping. The Association of Chief Police Officers has issued guidance to forces suggesting the cost of policing events should be set at £55 per hour per officer. The 164 incidents recorded this year are roughly in line with last year's event, but down on 2021 when there were 223 incidents. A spokesperson for the Transmit Festival said, "Our events are created to be a force of good and create life-affirming moments for 50,000 music fans a day. The safety of these fans is a priority, and we work closely with multi-agency partners to ensure a safe environment." It's far below Tea in the Park, which had a reputation as one of the most crime-ridden major music festivals in Britain. At the last festival in 2016, there were 429 recorded crimes and 54 arrests. Offences included the theft of an ATM machine containing a significant amount of money. Transmit Festival will return to the city next year between July the 12th and July the 14th, with pre-sale tickets already on sale. An exclusive article written by Andrew Learmonth. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 11th of September. Team to climb Mount Kilimanjaro for charity. An exclusive article written by Taylor Murray. A brave man and his friends are aiming to take charity fundraising to new heights as they're set to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Freddie King, along with his friends Bob McGeechee and Alan Campbell, have been preparing for the challenge since last Christmas after a discussion in the gym. The 55-year-old from Lenzie has worked closely with the Marie Curie charity for a number of years and is hoping the challenge will help raise much-needed funds. Taking more than 24 hours to travel to their starting point, the friends will begin their challenge at the base of the mountain in Tanzania this Thursday. However, Freddie admits it will be a tough challenge, with the climb reaching around 20,000 feet. Speaking exclusively to the Glasgow Times, he said, "We're so up for it, and I would go tomorrow if I could. It's going to be a big ask, but we all know what we're doing it for, and that when we're struggling, the support of the charity will be behind us. We're all in our 50s, but we're confident that we can do this, and as it gets closer, the more excited I get about it." He added, "This journey is not about Freddie King or taking on the mountain. It's about the charity and the work they do to help people who suffer from cancer. I love everything to do with the charity, the staff, the work and the way they help people. We'll be wearing our Marie Curie beanies and be taking a flag up with us to plant at the top." All three men are keen mountain climbers, with Glenn Coe becoming their closest friend of late due to the amount of time they've climbed in the area. The journey up the mountain is expected to take roughly 6 days and another 2 to come back down. They'll also be accompanied by doctors to ensure they stay in good health on the trip. So far, the friends have raised more than £23,000 for the charity through fundraisers and charity events, with the goal of hitting £30,000 before they return home. Freddie said, "It'll be a special moment getting to the top, as I'm sure we'll all be thinking of someone. It used to be that 1 in 10 people would develop some form of cancer in their lifetime. Now it's 1 in 2. But the money we raise from this is key for Marie Curie, as half of their funding comes from entrepreneurs and the other half comes from government funding. The great thing about something like this is that it could give someone the inspiration to take it further or recreate it, making it invaluable to the charity." An exclusive article written by Taylor Murray. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 11th of September. Thousands of drugs taken off the streets of Glasgow. A front-page article written by Lauren Brownlee. Hundreds of thousands of dangerous tablets have been taken off the streets of Glasgow. Police Scotland today revealed more than 200,000 street Valium tablets were recovered across the city in just 3 months between April and June 2023. The news comes as the force's latest performance report was published, which will be presented to the Scottish Police Authority on Tuesday, September the 12th. It details seizures of cannabis, cocaine, heroin and street Valium across the country as part of action by officers, which saw millions of pounds worth of illegal drugs recovered. More than 160,000 street Valium tablets, including etizolam and bromazolam, were recovered in neighbouring Lanarkshire, as well as 30,000 in Renfrewshire and Inverclyde. Detective Chief Superintendent Vicky Watson said, "Police Scotland has a vital role in preventing illicit drugs reaching our streets and disrupting the nefarious activities of those engaged in serious organised criminality. We're all too aware of the terrible toll of drugs death in Scotland. The ongoing activity described in the performance report underlines our commitment to reducing the harm caused to individuals, families and communities. The encouraging figures underline that those working in partnership to deliver the country's serious organised crime strategy continue to have a considerable impact on these illegal activities and are contributing to helping to keep our communities safe. These seizures will undoubtedly have a massive negative effect on the activities of those involved." A front-page article written by Lauren Brownlee. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 11th of September. Undiagnosed condition left Glasgow woman unable to eat or speak. An exclusive article written by Amanda Keenan. A woman has told how she was forced to pay for private medical treatment after an undiagnosed disorder left her unable to speak, eat or sleep. Hannah Garrow is calling on the Scottish Government to invest and recruit more NHS professionals who specialise in trauma care to help vulnerable people before they reach crisis point. The brave 26-year-old told how she hit rock bottom after struggling to cope with a string of tumultuous and harrowing experiences in her childhood and developed complex PTSD as a result. Hannah, who is from Kelvindale, said, "I spent most of my adolescence knowing something was wrong, but I didn't have the language to articulate what it was. When I did reach out for help, the NHS simply didn't have the resources to help trauma survivors like me. I never had the tools to deal with what I experienced, and despite my best efforts to bury my feelings, everything came crashing down earlier this year." Hannah reached breaking point with crippling health issues that left her unable to leave the house. She explained, "I hit rock bottom. I couldn't go out of the front door. I lost the ability to speak properly and struggled to put a sentence together. I couldn't eat and was suffering repeated flashbacks from my childhood. Mentally and physically, I just couldn't cope. I had to leave my job as my brain was in hypervigilant state and everything around me felt like a threat. I was struggling to function and knew I had to find the right therapist who was equipped to help me." Hannah admits she struggled to find the right support through the NHS, and it was only after forking out for private trauma therapy that she felt ready to move towards rebuilding her life. She was diagnosed with complex PTSD in February and is now campaigning for wider awareness of the condition, which stems from trauma experienced in childhood or later in life and impacts physical as well as mental health. Hannah said, "It manifests itself in all sorts of ways and can even be triggered by a bad workplace experience or a car crash. With me, it was issues from my past that I buried and never addressed. They all came flooding back at the start of the year, and it resulted in a particularly bad episode that has taken me 4 months to recover from. I've still got a long way to go, but just having a diagnosis and the right therapy is helping enormously." Now, Hannah, who is also a talented singer, is preparing to take on the Great Scottish Run's half marathon on October the 1st to help fundraise for PTSD UK. She adds, "My story is a failing of society, and it's a story that tragically keeps repeating. I've had complex PTSD for roughly 20 years, but it went undiagnosed. The signs were there, but the condition was not widely recognised when I was a child. My symptoms were viewed as personality traits until I could no longer ignore or hide them. Awareness of PTSD and complex PTSD is crucial, and funding for improved trauma care is so desperately needed within the NHS. We need more safe spaces, and we need people to understand that we can't just ignore the nightmares that live in our bodies. Taking part in the run is a huge step forward for me when a few months ago I couldn't step outside. I hope sharing my story helps others to realise that it's okay not to be okay." A Scottish Government spokesperson said, "Direct investment in mental health has more than doubled since 2020-2021, and we continue to invest in growing the workforce and seeking further improvements. The mental health workforce has expanded significantly, with record numbers of staff providing more varied support to a larger number of people than ever before. The psychology and child and adolescent mental health services staffing has more than doubled since 2007. An exclusive article written by Amanda Keenan.
From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 12th of September, from the news section, alleged victim of child sex ring was shut in oven and fridge, by Grant McCabe. A girl said to be a victim of a child sex and witchcraft ring was shut in an oven, fridge and cupboard, as well as had spells put on her, jurors heard. The child was one of a number of youngsters who allegedly suffered abuse, some of which was apparently filmed. Police were alerted in 2020 when a man who knew the children reported that he had been told about what was said to have happened. He today agreed that he had been driven by his principles and conscience to help the youngsters. 7 men and 4 women are on trial at the High Court in Glasgow, facing an indictment listing a total of 32 charges alleged to have occurred in the city between January 2010 and October 2020. The accusations involve 4 children with allegations including rape, other sex offences, witchcraft and attempted murder. The witness today told jurors how he had got to know the youngsters through his work. The man and his wife ended up spending time in their company on different occasions. The court heard the man first contacted police regarding concerns about the children around March 2020. This was after an incident involving one of the girls when they were with her. The man told how he soon began to document claims a number of the children went on to make about members of the group. A series of emails, shown to the court today, were then sent by him to Police Scotland detailing accusations. This included a claim one of the girls was put in an oven and closed in. The same child was also allegedly padlocked in a fridge and shut in a cupboard with beetles and spiders in it. On hearing this read back to him in court, the man today said, "That is a nightmare in real time. Listening to that, it is quite distressing." In a further email, the same girl reportedly stated she did not like it when the witches pointed their wands at her and put spells on the child. The man noted that 2 of the other children spoke of a group of witches and wizards. They were said to have been urged to join in on occult practices. The court also heard of a Ouija board being used to talk to dead people and spirits with it. An email mentioned claims of rape nights, dance and sex nights, as well as dog killing nights. A dog owned by one of the coven was among the animals said to have been cut and stabbed to death. A further email shown in court described in graphic detail alleged sexual abuse involving some of the children. One of the girls was also forced to eat a pot noodle without water in the beastie house. The same child was further later to have stated, "It is not nice when people laugh at you when you are hurting." Prosecutor Kath Harper asked the man if the children got upset when discussing any of the accusations. The witness replied, "One of them did a couple of times about things that happened, but the majority of occasions, it was just very much matter of fact, like replaying it in their minds, talking it over." Owen's KC Gary Allen later questioned the witness. The defence advocate put to him at one stage, "You were driven by your principles and conscience to do what you could to help them?" The witness replied he did. Mr. Allen suggested there was no hint of allegations of abuse or witchcraft when he first got to know the children. The man agreed there was not. Ian Owens, 45, Elaine Lannery, 39, Leslie Williams, 41, Paul Brannan, 41, Marianne Gallagher, 38, Scott Forbes, 50, Barry Watson, 47, Mark Carr, 50, Richard Gagakin, 45, Leona Lang, 51, and John Clark, 47, deny the accusations they face. The trial before Judge Lord Beckett continues. And that article was written by Grant McCabe. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 12th of September, from the news section, popular coffee chain handing out free drinks to customers in Paisley. Report by Ben Waddle. A popular coffee chain is giving away free drinks as part of celebrating a milestone. Tim Hortons on Renfrew Road in Paisley is handing out a free drink to customers each day until Sunday, September the 17th, to celebrate its 4th birthday. Those who head down to the branch will be able to claim a small drink for nothing. A spokesperson said, iconic Canadian restaurant brand, Tim Hortons, has today announced that it is celebrating the 4th birthday of its Paisley restaurant by offering the local community a free drink every day this week until December 17th. As a thank you to local neighbours and long-time fans of the brand, anyone who heads down to Tim Hortons Paisley can claim a small free drink, meet the team and join in the celebrations. Report by Ben Waddle. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 12th of September, from the news section. Thief freed from court after pretending to be man due for release. By Connor Gordon. A brazen prisoner was accidentally freed from custody at a court after pretending to be a man who was due to be released. Alan Galbraith claimed to be Stuart Gallagher, whose name was called by security staff at Glasgow Sheriff Court on January the 30th, 2023. Galbraith, 40, was allowed to exit the court with the real Stuart Gallagher's belongings, including £120 in cash. The error was later noticed, but Galbraith was not traced until the following day when he was arrested. Galbraith pleaded guilty at Glasgow Sheriff Court to a string of charges including fraud and theft. He was jailed for 29 months by Sheriff Michael Hanlon. The court heard that Galbraith had stolen items from two students at their dorms on January 27th, 2023. They included a purse, a laptop, jewellery and a mobile phone. Galbraith was chased after one of the victims gave a location to police from the Find My Phone app. Galbraith appeared in Glasgow Sheriff Court on January the 30th in relation to the matters having been remanded in custody. Prosecutor Jeremy O'Neill said, while he was in line at the charge bar to be processed, a member of security staff called the name Stuart Gallagher. At this point, Galbraith stepped forward to confirm himself to be Stuart Gallagher. He was taken to a desk at the bar where he confirmed his name to be Stuart Gallagher. The actual Stuart Gallagher was to be released from court. Security prepared Stuart Gallagher's possessions, which were then given to Galbraith. Mr. O'Neill added, Galbraith signed the bail papers belonging to Stuart Gallagher, and he was allowed to exit the court while still in possession of the items, which included £120 in cash. The security officer later realised his mistake and informed the police. Galbraith was initially unable to be traced and checks were carried out with his known associates. He was eventually picked up the following day at 5:30 p.m. in the city centre's Argyll Street, where he was arrested. The court heard of an earlier incident when Galbraith was caught inside a flat in the city's Dumbarton Road. When confronted by the owner, Galbraith claimed he was a KFC delivery driver and stated, "You left your door open." In another incident, Galbraith was challenged by another homeowner who caught him trying to force his door open. Galbraith said, "Have you ordered a pizza?" before leaving. Slices of pizza were later found in the clothes of the property, which contained Galbraith's DNA. His DNA was also found on a mobile phone left at the property, where he had taken a laptop, a games console and bottles of aftershave. And that report was by Connor Gordon.
This is from the Glasgow Times on the 13th of September 2023 from the news section. And the headline reads, Council in 4-year fight to close down illegal Glasgow car park. This article is by Amanda Keenan. An illegal car park is continuing to operate in the heart of Glasgow, 4 years after council chiefs first ordered that it be shut down. City Chambers bosses have been pursuing English-based Smart Parking Limited, which is paid to operate the Washington Street site on behalf of a mystery owner, after discovering it didn't have planning permission. Despite issuing an enforcement order in 2019, the firm is continuing to run the facility, charging motorists £1.50 per hour for a stay in any of its 200 spaces. The dispute was uncovered through a Freedom of Information request, which has been viewed by the Glasgow Times. It revealed that the council bosses followed up their initial demand by issuing a further planning contravention notice in December 2021. These may be served as an alternative to seeking prosecution, where the terms of an initial notice have not been complied with. The penalties can run into thousands of pounds, and failure to pay them can result in the case being referred to the Procurator Fiscal for possible prosecution. However, council legal chiefs say in the FOI document that the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, COPFS, have not been accepting planning prosecutions in recent years, leaving them in limbo as to how to best tackle the problem. The document also reveals that the site's owner could be breaching DVLA rules by running the facility against the law. The keeper, on day of event contract law, stipulates that a firm is only allowed to collect personal details of drivers, such as number plates, if they are operating lawfully. As well as contacting the DVLA, the council could also take the matter to the sector's official regulator, the British Parking Association. The Glasgow Times understands that the case has now been passed to the local authority's legal team for further consideration. Labour Anderson ward councillor Philip Bratt is calling on council bosses to look at all options to try and resolve the matter. He said, "I'm very disappointed to learn that the owner is flouting the law and ignoring the compulsory enforcement notice. I would hope the Procurator Fiscal's office reconsiders its position to take this matter forward. I will be urging the council to look at all legal avenues." A source told the Glasgow Times, "After all the carry-on and warnings that were issued to drivers about the low emissions zone by the council, here we have an illegal car park within it. The council's hands are tied to an extent though. They really need the support of the Procurator Fiscal's office, as they are the ones with the legal powers to deal with this. Without their clout, it looks like the people responsible think they can just flaunt the planning laws that the rest of this city must abide by." A spokesperson for Glasgow City Council said they were continuing to look at how best to resolve the long-running issue. They added, "This car park has been operating without planning permission, and efforts to ensure compliance have been ignored. We are currently reviewing our legal options on this matter." A spokesperson for the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service said, "We engage regularly with the agencies who report crime to us and will continue to provide support to further their understanding of our work. COPFS will carefully consider any reports of alleged criminal conduct which are submitted by the police or any specialist reporting agency. Prosecutorial action will be taken if the reports contain sufficient admissible evidence of a crime and if it is appropriate and in the public interest to do so." A spokesperson for Smart Parking Limited said, "We do not own or lease the car park in question. We operate it on our client's instructions. We are merely a contractor. Therefore, we do not have any further comment to make." This article was by Amanda Keenan. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 13th of September 2023, from the news section. And the headline reads, "Glasgow East End, Salvation Army Citadel turned into offices." This article was by Ian McConnell. A former Salvation Army Citadel in the East End of Glasgow has been transformed into office space. Now known as New Olympia House, the space will support in the region of 30 full-time jobs, those behind the development noted. The £1.7 million development has been spearheaded by Clyde Gateway, which describes itself as Scotland's largest regeneration company, and has created 280 square metres of modern commercial office space. It has been designed by architectural practice O'Donnell Brown, based in Glasgow. The design of the refurbished property on Olympia Street in Glasgow includes a large sculptural metal tower called the Beacon, described as a nod to the adjacent Bridgeton umbrella. The internal spaces have been approached with a defurbishment strategy, exposing brickwork, roof trusses, and existing timber linings, while improving the energy performance of the building with new insulation throughout, air source heat pump technology, and underfloor heating. Clyde Gateway purchased the property in December 2020, with planning permission granted in February last year. Work began last summer. The main contractor, Redpath Construction, delivered a range of community benefit initiatives, including giving work experience to its students from Trinity High School in nearby Rutherglen, and supporting Green Trees Nursery in Bridgeton by refurbishing its garden and play space, and running a toy appeal at Christmas, delivering 3 van loads of toys to the nursery. Martin McKay, Chief Executive of Clyde Gateway, said, "We brought this iconic building a few years ago because we knew this had great potential to drive investment right into the heart of Bridgeton. It is a great space for organisations and businesses to add to the civic organisations that call Bridgeton home." A key objective of this project was to ensure that we did not lose the charm of the original building. The architects, O'Donnell Brown, and builder, Redpath Construction, have carried out an excellent job whilst updating the space into a modern and energy-efficient workspace. He added, Clyde Gateway has refurbished and built a number of properties in the immediate vicinity, bringing businesses and organisations to the area. We cannot wait to get new tenants utilising this space too and investing in the East End of Glasgow. Susan Cardwell, Marketing and Business Development Manager at Redpath Construction, said, It has been a real privilege to be part of the transformation of the building with Clyde Gateway. As a true regeneration project, we have not only been able to breathe new life into New Olympia House, creating a bright and sustainable office space, we've also had the opportunity to support local young people through training and made lasting relationships with the fantastic team at Green Trees Nursery. There are few projects where the impact on the local community has been felt more keenly. Jennifer O'Donnell, Director of O'Donnell Brown, said, New Olympia House provided an exciting opportunity to repurpose a historic building and further strengthen one of Glasgow's historic crosses. The regeneration of Bridgeton Cross over the last decade has been tackled with ambition and care, and O'Donnell Brown enjoyed working in this context with the project team and Clyde Gateway to give this local landmark a brighter future and a new lease of life. This article was by Ian McConnell. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 13th of September 2023 from the news section, and the headline reads, Inspector warns delay to Barlinnie prison rebuild would be travesty. This article is by Tom Gordon. It would be a travesty if the Scottish Government delayed the replacement for Glasgow's Barlinnie jail again, His Majesty's Chief Inspector of Prisons for Scotland has warned. In her annual report for 2023-23, Wendy Sinclair-Given also highlighted overcrowding problems across Scotland's 15 prisons, which acted as a barrier to rehabilitation. She said there was a lack of strategic clarity for tackling numbers and a continued use of antiquated Victorian facilities that breached human rights guidelines. The routine over reliance on HMP Barlinnie for surge capacity when prisoner numbers are high accentuates the risks until new HMP Glasgow is built and becomes operational. Ms Sinclair-Gibbon was also concerned at the treatment of mentally ill people after inspecting 4 prisons last year: Castle Huntly, Addiewell, Inverness and Shotts. She reported, I was genuinely concerned to see so many acutely mentally unwell people being held in custody while awaiting inpatient care. There is no doubt that prison staff were doing their best, but we noted they had to cope with profoundly distressed patients who should have been in hospital. The Herald reported in June that the replacement for 130-year-old Barlinnie, the country's largest jail, was facing yet another delay. Priced at $170 million in 2015 with a 2018 start date, the project has been delayed by difficulties finding a new site and latterly by rampant inflation in the construction sector. It is now expected to cost more than $400 million and open in 2027 at the earliest. In the foreword to our report, Ms Sinclair-Gibbon effectively urged ministers to find the money to replace Barlinnie and Inverness jail. She wrote, Scotland has demonstrated the ability to achieve significant justice reforms in the past. We now need to see the same commitment and focus to drive further reform with innovative thinking that can deliver a justice system Scotland deserves, but still within an appropriate funding envelope. However, while recognising the difficult fiscal challenges facing the Scottish Government, it would be a travesty to see any delay in the arrival of the much-needed HMP Glasgow and the HMP Highland. Tory MSP Russell Findlay said, This damning report confirms the many warnings from prison staff about the catastrophic conditions inside Scotland's jails. It must serve as a wake-up call for SNP ministers. Crumbling Victorian-era prisons, rampant drug use and a lack of basic resources is endangering staff and making rehabilitation impossible, thereby continuing the cycle of crime on our streets. Yet this complacent SNP government has no sense of urgency. with the desperately needed Glasgow and Highland prisons already subject to significant delays. Scottish Liberal Democrat MSP Liam MacArthur added, Scotland's prisons are not serving prisoners, prison staff or the wider community well. If the government's serious about breaking the cycle of reoffending, we need to see a properly funded justice system that can deliver robust and credible community sentences where appropriate. A Scottish Prison Service spokesperson said, We welcome the Chief Inspector's report and her continuing recognition of the outstanding work of our staff in challenging circumstances, particularly in the face of our rising population. While it is not for us to determine who should be sentenced or remanded to custody, the impact on our establishments is significant. We are managing a rapidly rising and increasingly complex prison population, and many of our establishments are full beyond their design capacity. The safety and well-being of those in our care and of our staff remains our priority. These pressures are increasingly restricting our staff's ability to do the quality work that supports the personal development, rehabilitation, and chances of successful reintegration into communities for those in our care. A Scottish Government spokesperson said, While prison is needed for those who pose a risk to public safety, we recognise that the imprisonment rate in Scotland is high and we are taking action to address that. That includes ongoing work to implement our national strategy for community justice and protecting investment in community-based interventions, which we know are more effective at reducing reoffending than short-term imprisonment. The well-being, safety and human rights of all those who live in our prisons will continue to be a priority for the Scottish Government and the Prison Service, and we will work with them and other partners to respond to specific issues raised in the report. This article was by Tom Gordon. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 13th of September 2023 from the news section, and the headline reads, Peak time rail fares to be scrapped in trial from next month. This article is by Stuart Patterson. Peak time rail fares are to be scrapped in a trial starting next month. The Scottish Government has confirmed the dates of the pilot that will see off-peak tickets able to be used all day. The trial period will be from October 2nd until March 29th next year. Fiona Hislop, Transport Minister, said that it's hoped the move will encourage more people to use the trains. She said, This peak fare removal pilot is aimed at achieving this by making ticketing simpler, with off-peak fares valid all day. This is an exciting and unique opportunity to encourage more people to choose a safe, reliable and greener form of public transport. The trial will see big savings across the country, with fares on the main route between Edinburgh and Glasgow coming down from £28.90 to £14.90, and Glasgow to Stirling down from £16.10 to £9.60. Rail bosses hope reducing costs will increase passenger numbers. Alex Hines, Scotland's Railway Managing Director, said, This is a hugely exciting opportunity for Scotland's Railway to encourage more people across the country to choose rail travel instead of using the car. Everyone at ScotRail is working hard to make sure that the 6-month trial will be a success, and we'll be monitoring our services and stations daily to see where we have any significant increases in customer journeys. We know that cost and simplicity is a critical factor for people when they choose how to travel, and we are looking forward to delivering this fantastic fare reduction for our customers. The pilot will be reviewed before any commitment is made to making it a long-term change. This article was by Stuart Patterson.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Review and to tell your friends about our service.